Hey guys. This isn't normally the kind of video I do, but I thought it might be nice for a change of pace to do a little tier list thing. I know that's very popular within the community. And since this is, for me, the Christmas Cav month, and I'm doing a lot of PowerPoints on the Christmas Cavs, I figured we could do a Cavalier tier list throughout the series, but I'm only ranking the ones that I feel confident in ranking. I haven't played a lot of Engage yet. I feel like that's still relatively new. There's some other games in here that I haven't played enough of to feel super confident in ranking. There's also going to be some NPC Cavs in here. We will mostly ignore them unless I want to rank them because it's funny. But yeah, with that, let's just go ahead and get started. Frederick's right here. Easy S tier. Probably the most useful unit for several early chapters on in Awakening. Very powerful, very consistent. Can be more useful in the late game if you want him to be, but won't necessarily be. And then we've got Stall. Stall is next. I think Stall is like a C tier unit. He's the definition of average, which plays into his character design and everything related to that really well. So yeah, I think Stall sits right there. He does have some things he can do. When trained, he's pretty good, but on the higher difficulties, you're probably going to be using him more as a pair-up bot than anything. Sully. Sully is also an average unit, probably slightly better than Stall, just due to the fact that she will be chunking up a bit more EXP early on. But overall, pretty average. Wallheart. By the time you get him, I feel like he's not that great anymore. Doesn't have a lot of support options. Yeah, I think we're gonna say D tier. D tier for Wallheart. Allen. Allen's a B tier for me. He has a few accuracy issues, which is not uncommon for FE6, but for the most part, very consistent early game unit, very helpful. Same with Lance, whereas Allen's got a bit more power, Lance has a bit more speed. Lance is a bit worse than Allen, in my opinion. He's more susceptible to getting stat screwed. So I think that Lance is the better of the two. Um, I don't. I don't know that I would say that Lance has anything particularly over Allen, but both are still quite good. Um, would recommend using both in the average playthrough. Then we have Marcus. Marcus is an even question. Marcus is an S tier unit. He is so ungodly necessary for the early game of FE6, especially in hard mode. Um, Marcus is like the giant shield behind which Roy and your other baby training units will be hiding for like the first 5 chapters. He is a huge safety net. And until you get Rutger, he is also one of the only consistent ways that you can deal with enemies because everybody else will be a training project and accuracy is luxury in FE6. I think this one's Arkard. I don't remember his name, but I know he's one of the enemy NPCs. Then we have Noah. Noah's tricky for me. I think sometimes I tend to overrate Noah because I like him, but I think Noah is probably top of C tier. He has some really great things going for him. A lot of people underestimate Noah, right? Statistically, in FE6, Noah is going to be the Cavalier with the worst growths. However, at his join time, Noah is also going to be the Cavalier with the highest level, highest weapon level with a C in swords, and that allows Noah to do a few things. It gets him very easy EXP in the upcoming maps over in the Western Isles, and he gets access to the Killing Edge right away, which effectively allows him to serve as a mobile version of Rutger. Now, he's not going to be doing quite as much as Rutger will for you in the average playthrough. That's for sure. But he has his uses. He's certainly useful throughout the Western Isles. And I would say, yeah, while he probably has the least potential as a Cav when trained, the fact that he's ready to go right out of the box and only takes, I think, 2 levels in order to be able to be promoted, if you want to go that route, is very useful. Now, if you do that, he will essentially be like just as good as Zealot. Not much better, not much worse. But yeah, just something to consider. Trek. Trek is slightly more unfortunate than Noah for a few reasons. So, Trek is in a game with Alan and Lance, who are with you from the start, and unlike Noah, he has a slightly harder time being recruited because where Noah spawns in an easy spot right in front of the arena, which is basically where you spawn in for the chapter that both he and Trek are recruited. Trek is over with Zealot, already in the thick of things, potentially in danger and needs to be rescued. And while that isn't a huge problem on normal mode, it still can be. But on hard mode, rescuing Trek and Zealot, especially in like an Iron Man or a setting like that, is exceptionally difficult. It is very, very hard to save both of them. Whereas Noah is essentially free. Now, if you get Trek, to not knock that against Trek, if you get him, he is a low-level Cavalier with kind of whatever bases, but solid growths. And if you do train him, he will be about as good as Alan and Lance are. Probably more defensive than they are for sure. Not quite as powerful, but more defensive. But Trek's biggest issue is just it takes more effort to get him to that point. He doesn't have like the niche that Noah does in that regard. And so why would you use him as opposed to Alan and Lance? You know, whereas Noah is more like a temporary filler, like you would use him for specific purposes. Trek just doesn't have that as long as Alan and Lance are both there. Then we have Percival. Do I think Percival is better than Alan and Lance? I do. I don't know if I'd quite put him A tier, but I think top of B tier is fair. Percival is an insanely potent unit once you get him. But that's the big issue, right? It's once you get him. He has really great weapon ranks, can use everything right off the bat. He's better once he joins on average than Alan and Lance will be. Even if they were to be level 20 promoted, same level as Percival, he will still be right there with them, if not better because of his weapon ranks. Percival is genuinely one of the greatest units in FE6. So why is he in B rank? He's not available until fairly late into the game. And while you can get him a little bit earlier, it is an ordeal to do so. It only gets you him for a couple extra chapters before you would normally get him anyway. And he's not particularly useful in those chapters, but he's a bit of an ordeal to recruit as well, because you have to recruit him with your dancer. If you know about dancers, you know dancers have 5 movement, and Percival has 8 and is one of the strongest units in the game. He also comes with a squadron of knights, or not knights, cavaliers, but comes with a squadron of those backing him up. So, not the easiest person to recruit. Doable. Not easy. Still, You get rewarded for it with one of the best units in the game. Zealot. I think Zealot is top of C tier. If the early game did not give you Marcus to work with, Zealot would probably be top of B, maybe even A tier, because he is a pre-promoted paladin, ready to go off the bat, and he has pretty okay bases. His accuracy can be a bit of an issue, but other than that, pretty okay. Same issues as Trek that I mentioned before. He starts in the thick of it. Sometimes it requires rescuing him, but he's a bit easier to save than Trek just because he's pre-promoted. I don't really have anything super interesting to say about Zealot other than that you need him if you want to go down the Ilya route to be alive, which also might make you want to not use him if you are planning on going down the Ilya route, which most people prefer to do anyway because Ilya is significantly easier. But yeah, Zealot he's like the definition of an okay pre-promote. You know, you use him for a little bit, you're gonna want to replace him at some point. He's never gonna be on any end game teams unless you really, really like the guy. But he's not bad by any stretch. Who's next? I see Isadora. I think Isadora gets kind of a bad rap. I think within the context of her game, I think Isadora is like a B minus tier unit. She is, as far as paladins go, not great. But she has acceptable bases. Joins at a pretty inconvenient time for her, which I think does hold her back a lot. But she comes with a silver sword and a short spear, and she can contribute in the level she joins. She does decently on certain maps where you need high mobility units beyond that. Like in Battle Before Dawn, she can be useful if you gave her the angelic robe she comes with. But I think Isadora is mostly just held back by the fact that this is a game where you have Marcus, Kent, Sane, and Lowen, who you would all really rather use in the average playthrough than Isadora. I actually think, if you look at it statistically, I think Sane on average is going to do less for you than Isadora will, but I think he'll be more trained by that point, and so he will be better. You know, he'll just be better because he's trained, and Isadora's not, and she has low HP. But like I said, she has her uses. She's totally fine, totally usable. Just yeah, like all pre-promotes, has some flaws. With Kent. Kent, I think it depends. If you don't have Lin mode, I think Kent is probably like here. But if you do use Lin mode, I think Kent is like here. So I'm gonna balance him out. I'm gonna say he's probably, let's say he's better than Lance, worse than Alan. Kent is your more consistent of the two early game Cavaliers if you do Lin mode. If you don't, you're probably not using Kent or Sane. You're probably using Lowen. Kent is the most balanced choice between the three. Lowen's very defensive. Sane is very strength focused. Kent is kind of your balancing act. Because of that, I think between the three, he is probably the best of the Cavaliers in FE7. So I'm gonna put Lowen here, and I'm gonna put Sane. I'm actually gonna put Sane at C tier. Uh, I don't think Sane is that great. I think Sane is super overhyped. I think he's usually kind of slow, and I think he has difficulty hitting the broadside of a barn half the time. I love Sane. I think he's hilarious, but I also think he's not that great. Now we have Marcus again, another S tier. Uh, Arguably better than Marcus in FE6. The only reason that there is an argument instead of just straight up saying it is because FE6 Marcus is a necessity and FE7 Marcus isn't. However, FE7 Marcus is an objectively better unit, so I'm gonna put him above for now. Skipping the engage cast. We have Gunter. Ooh. Gunter is gonna be the easiest D tier of my life. He is not useful, even in the periods where he should be useful. He's there mostly as backup more than anything else. Let's just go ahead and put all the engaged characters in here. Perry. Perry's not great either. I know there's some Perry fans out there. I think as a unit, she's just not that great. I think she has the potential to be really cool skill, but by the time that she's around, I just don't think she's ultimately that useful. And that stinks. But yeah. I don't have a lot to say on Perry because I'm not as quite as versed in Fates as a lot of FE2pers are. I think she's fine. Within the context of the game, I think she's mostly fine. The reason I'm putting her in D tier is sure you can use her, right? And she'll be fine, but there's better options for you in Conquest most of the time, if I remember correctly. And then in Revelation, it's not even a question. You don't use Parry. You just don't use Parry. Siegbert? Siegbert's fine, I guess. There's not a lot to say about him. Just a very boring unit. He's probably jeez. Do I think he's better than Sully or Stahl? Probably not. He's probably there. You, my friend, you get a very bad rap, which is a shame because you're one of the most consistent units in Fates. Silas is pretty darn good. Pretty darn good. On the average playthrough, I think Silas will do more for you than Kent will. I don't think he'll probably do quite as much for you as Alan will. I think he is a perfectly good B tier unit. I think in Revelation, he has some very high increased stats, which do you a lot of favors. I think in Conquest, he joins early enough that he is very useful in the early game and can potentially do you so many favors, and his personal skills very helpful. And I think that in Birthright, he is really your only meaningful way of accessing his class line. So, super underrated unit. People like to hate on him. I think he has a dumb haircut, but other than that, pretty good. This is Sophie, I think. She's kind of like her dad. She's fine. Totally balanced. Xander. Not even a question. Probably the second best unit in Conquest behind Camilla. Held back only by a relatively late join time. One of the best units in Revelation. If we're just rating all Fates characters overall, he's probably Oh, jeez. He's definitely in the top 5 units. Probably in, like, the top 3. He's behind Ryoma. He's questionably behind Camilla. But, yeah. Xander's exceedingly powerful. This is Alec? Alec is... I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Alec's fine. He contributes in the early game. You know, he's helpful, but he doesn't do much beyond like the first chapter. So I think he has to fall there. Ares though. Ares is a very good unit. I'm gonna put him in A tier. I think that if Ares joined you in chapter 1 of Generation 2, I would probably place him in S tier. But because he joins in chapter 2, and you potentially already have Arthur with Forseti, and Shannon joins in the same chapter he does. And also Ares takes like a tiny bit of work to get going. But he is very, very good. But I think because of that, A for Ares. Pretty good unit. Pretty damn good unit. What do we have here? Finn. Okay. Finn is a good unit, right? But he's good for weird reasons. In FE4 Generation 1, Finn's not great, but you should use him anyway. In fact, you should train him exceptionally large amounts. Why? Because Finn is the only Gen 1 unit who comes back in Gen 2 and is playable. So what do you do with Finn? You train him in part 1, and then he comes back in part 2, typically very busted depending on how much you invested into him. You give him that Brave Lance, and he will single-handedly protect the castle along with Leaf and Nana from the time they join. I don't think most players will do that. And I also know that he is gimped in Generation 2 if you do make him a father. And he does not really contribute much in Generation 1, other than being another high movement cav when he's around, and doing okay combat beyond Chapter 1. So I think Finn goes here. He's fine. Lex, on the other hand, is with you for all of Generation 1. But he has worse combat on average until you get him the Brave Axe. But he's pretty decent with the Brave Axe. Lex is never like really a standout unit though. He's just a mounted cav. Very good father though. He's tough to rate because of that. Probably here. Probably right there is fine. I forget your name, but I know you're the mounted axe cav from the 2nd generation. You're fine. You're like bottom of C tier. You're usable. Don't get any extra help, really, which is the biggest issue. You don't get the growths or anything from Holy Blood. You're just a mounted axe cav. But that's okay, because sometimes that's enough. Noish is better than Alec. I think that Noish is probably better than Lex when he's trained, actually. Give him the Brave Sword, and he will do a lot for you. It's like a 1 investment item. It's really the only thing he needs to start really popping off. But there are a lot of characters who could covet that. So, I think just because he's not as desirable as a father as Lex. Do I think I do believe he does more for you than Sane. But I don't know if I want to put him in B tier quite. I think I'll say top of C tier. That seems fair to me. Fiona's dog water. That doesn't really need explanation. Joffrey, this is like his Radiant Dawn version, I think. But well, does this account for both? Okay, it just has a picture of Radiant Dawn with. So in Path of Radiance, Joffrey's pretty alright. Fairly good unit. By the way, get over there. Wait, no, is this what's his name? I think this is the guy who joins you early in Gen 2, whose name I can't remember. He's like a kid in Gen 1. It's gonna come to me later and I'm gonna be very annoyed. But he has like his own archetype and everything. But he's fine. He's like known for being fine. He's probably better than Finn. I think he falls like, well, no, because he comes right away as well. So I'm gonna say he's better than Isadora. Yeah, I think he goes right there. Anyway, Joffrey. We were talking about Joffrey. Comes late in Path of Radiance, but very easy to train because of Paragon. Similarly, not difficult to train in Radiant Dawn. Even with his relatively lower availability, Joffrey has one chapter all to himself, more or less. And beyond that, he can still be pretty serviceable. I don't think he's anything incredible, but I think he's just fine. I think Joffrey probably goes top of C, bottom of B. Let's say bottom of B. Kieran in Path of Radiance, super useful unit. In Radiant Dawn, basically a trash heap. I'm gonna say middle of C. That evens out to. Makalov, okay unit in Path of Radiance. Not so great in Radiant Dawn. What a shock. You're probably like there. We have Oscar. Oscar's an A tier unit. Oscar is highly mobile, as expected. Shocker, they all are. Comes early, gives you some time to level him up. He is, along with Titania, your best early option. Unlike Kieran, who comes a bit later, he doesn't come at an inconvenient time or at a cost to you. His weapon type is pretty okay. Once you promote him, you'll get to choose another one for him, which certainly is not bad. He has the triangle attack with his brothers if you're into that sort of thing. He supports with Ike, and I believe he might support with Titania. Could be wrong on that, but he's just Oscar's a very consistently good unit. It's possible to have bad Oscar, but it's very, very rare. Yeah, my biggest issue with Oscar is just existing in a game where Titania is there, you know, and she's better. She is an S tier unit. And while I think Oscar is also really, really good, Titania is the best FE9 unit, hands down. Hands down. Now, in FE10, she's still pretty damn good. So, She can rest in S because she is just mwah, chef's kiss of a unit. I'm gonna say that this is Shadow Dragon and New Mystery. So, Abel, you kind of have to sit at the bottom of C tier. You're pretty good along with Kane in Shadow Dragon, but my God, is your New Mystery performance just god awful? It's a joke. Um, Kane, you're not really held back near as much by your New Mystery performance. You're indispensable in Shadow Dragon. I think you probably go like there. Camus. Hmm. Camus. We're gonna set you there. I don't have too much commentary on you. I'm kidding. You're really good. Probably like that. Okay. Don't have too much to say on Camus. Frey, on the other hand, I have a little bit more to say on. You can only use him in normal mode of Shadow Dragon. He's pretty good when you do. In New Mystery, I think he's actually better than Kane. And this is the real only instance where he's, you know, reasonably playable. So I'm gonna say he's there. Jagan, you're only available in Shadow Dragon. Where you're useful early game? Yeah. Harden, one of the best in Shadow Dragon. You deserve better. Mathis, no. Roshea, I mean, serviceable in both games. You kind of just fall probably right about there. I don't remember your name, and I don't feel confident ranking you. But I don't feel good about your performance either. Oh, Violin's in here. Violin looks a lot like Mathis. Violin, not really great. Aaron, fine. Yeah, I think that's fair. I don't think you contribute more than Joffrey does in his game, but I think that you are very useful for what you're worth. Renning. Did I forget about Renning? Or was he just later on? I don't know. But Renning is right around here. He's just usable. Then we have the 3 New Mystery starting calves. And among them, I would probably do, let's see, what order would I do here? Probably like this would be, that seems about right. Oh, why did I bother because there's another instance here with Sirius. Let's just use that one then. Okay. Clive is not great. Do I think he's D tier? No. I think he's fine. This is, I don't remember his name, but he's Celica's brother. I think this guy gets kind of a bad rap, if I'm being honest. I think having a Cavalier on Celica's route, regardless of how late. He's obviously he comes in an unfortunate spot, sure, but I think that his existence alone, as if I'm remembering correctly, the sole Cavalier provides him some degree of use there. He can also be reclassed into a mage and be pretty good if I remember. So go right there. Matilda. Hmm. Yeah. Really good unit. Really, really good unit. You practically aren't a unit at all, Myson, by comparison. Um, you're around for exactly the final dungeon. Let's put you. Yeah, just because you're not around, man. Randall, people don't talk about Randall much, okay? Because he's a DLC character. Randall is one of the. I mean, Cavs get a bad break in Echoes, but Randall is actually pretty darn good. And that might be partially due to the weapon that he comes with, the Wayward Lance. But it's got a very useful skill on it. Randall has fairly standout stats and decent growths. He's just a very good unit, and the fact that you can get him on Celica's route when a Cav would be appreciated means that he does have some genuine uses that her brother does not. I think, yeah, bottom of B. Randall's fine. Very good. You should have shown up sooner, sir. We don't get to see enough. One of the best units in the game. Story writing wise. As a unit, let's just keep going. Yeah, there we go. Ford. We've talked about this. Ford is underrated. He's a good unit. Slightly higher level. Slightly faster, so he gets weapon ranks better. Pretty much interchangeable with Kyle. B tier. But like bottom of B tier because Cavs just aren't as necessary in Sacred Stones. Which is why even the one that you get super early on is probably only going about here. Franz is fine. Franz is fine. He's a good unit for what he is. The game is just not super fair to him. Kyle, right along in B tier. Him and Ford are pretty much interchangeable, as we said before. I prefer Ford. Most people prefer Kyle. Pick your poison. Orson. Don't think that one needs explaining. Seth is the best unit in all of Fire Emblem. Goes there easily. Dussel is fantastic as well. Also, I think the only thing holding him back from S tier is availability, which Xander's up there despite his availability, but I don't think Dussel's quite that good. Do I think he's better, contributes more than Ares does? Oh, no. Oscar? No, but Harden, yes. So I think A tier is where you comfortably are going to go. Um, Yuritsa. Yuritsa, you're not available for much. You're only available in one route where you decimate in that route. But you are otherwise just not around. So I think the best I can do is put you in bottom of B because you're only available for like such a short period on such a short route. Uh, Ferdinand. I mean, you're around the whole time, but I just don't think you're as good as Yuritsa. Leonie's also listed here for some reason. I usually don't have her in Cavalier, but top of C tier. You can't really go wrong with three houses units. Lorenz. I like Lorenz. I think Lorenz has a very interesting niche. But do I think that puts him in B tier? Do I think he's better than Ferdinand? I do. I do think he's better than Ferdinand. Sylvain? Sylvain is A tier. Probably one of the best units you can have in three houses. Perfect availability on any route as long as you're playing as a female Byleth. Really, really consistently good. And I don't feel confident ranking any of the other units here. So we'll go ahead and put the FE4 units, or sorry, the FE5 units on here. Everybody else isn't playable. So there's the list. Let me know what you think. And I'll see you next time.